We still have a lot of newcomers and new people, and I guarantee you there are people in these seats that you don't know other people's names. You know them by their face, but you might not know their names. So as we pass the piece later, as you're standing out in the hallway and or picking up the kids or getting ready to leave, meet somebody new and don't be embarrassed. It's like, oh man, I don't know your name. I don't know people's names. I ask all the time, because I will forget names because I meet a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's good to know each other by our names and by our faces and by, oh yeah, hey, I know you. That's all right. You're cool. You're all right in my book, right? So, I mean, and there's people that are not okay in our book, and we'll let them know. Wow, that took a weird turn. All right, so that's really not true. So, this whole thing is off the rails in like 20 seconds. All right, so we are in the lectionary. The gospel reading is Luke 10, 25 through 37. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. We've all probably heard this. If you've been around the church at all, you've heard this parable, and you've heard lots of different sermons on it. I don't want to really I don't think I want to spend a ton of time talking about it because it is pretty much there. But we will talk about some practical things. We're going to talk about at the end of this, I hope what we can get to is this, is that we have a tendency to read these things, to read these stories, which we call our scriptures, our holy scriptures, that point us to God. And we tend to then isolate and compartmentalize what we've read and how we live. Meaning, there's a cognitive dissonance between what we read and how we live. So we read the stories about love your neighbor, and we walk out of here and we justify all the ways that we don't love our neighbor. But we don't call it that. We don't say, I don't want to love you as my neighbor. We justify within our culture and our religion why I don't have to care for certain people. Are you with me? So I think for us to read this and to rail on stuff and to say, hey, look, it amazes me how many Christians say, I love God and I love others, and then the very actions that we take are anti-Christ. And so I think that somewhere there's a disconnect. Are you with me? Somewhere there's a disconnect between reading these words and living, and I don't know what that is, other than that we live in a world where we are just told about our rugged individualism and how take care of me and mine, and it really doesn't matter what other people do, and it really doesn't matter. And if they have a hard life, it's their fault. And I think that that's just kind of an American. It's baked into being American. Is almost like if you have a hard life, sucks to be you. It's your fault. Get your stuff straight. And I feel like that permeates Christianity a lot. And so I think that I think it's amazing to me how much we can read these words and read these stories and say that we follow Jesus, and then we absolutely walk out of these doors and we have walls built up between all kinds of different people for all kinds of different reasons. And it just doesn't make sense. It's frustrating as a leader to constantly talk about Jesus and love and loving our neighbor, and there is no male or female or Gentile or Jew or free or slave, stuff like Paul would say. And like last week we read the one command is love your neighbor as yourself. And we say these things constantly, and then we walk out of this room and rooms like this all around the city today or all around the nation today, and we just don't have a problem with how people are treated. We just don't have a problem with some people are just, kind of bad, scummy people, and they don't need to be thought about. And I'm telling you, can you tell that this is like something, I told the guys yesterday at the Bacon Club, we had to have some fun with the emo deal because it was heavy, and it was like, It's like something ought to be said. Like we just and I promise I'll get to this, but I have a lot to say. One of the things that I love about the DOC, about the Disciples of Christ, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, which we are Simplicity Christian Church, a part of the Disciples of Christ denomination, okay? That's who we are. We don't run from it. We don't hide it. We're not one of those churches that doesn't put it in their name, right? I mean, we all are known by Simplicity, but we are not afraid of our denomination. There's a lot of people that are non-denominational, they think denominations are bad, and that's just, I love our denomination. Amen? I love what we're a part of. Not everyone here in this room is DOC people, though. Maybe the Department of Corrections, but not.
You said you wouldn't bring that up.
But we're not all DOCers, and I understand that. I haven't been a DOCer for very long. I was a non-denominational guy, and then I was an Episcopalian, confirmed Episcopalian. But I love the DOC. And one of the reasons why is because in the DOC, we are what is called a mainline Protestant denomination. Okay, included in that is the Methodist Church, the Church of Christ, Catholic, Presbyterian, Lutheran, stuff like that, right? Just kind of your big Episcopalian, kind of those big mainline denominations. Everybody talks about they're all shrinking and dying, right? That's what we always hear. We are not, in the DOC, we are not considered an evangelical church. We're just not. We're considered a mainline Protestant denomination. Now, you can kind of say we have some evangelical feel to it. But one of the things that I love about the DOC is that a lot of times the DOC has been on the right side of history when it comes to the big picture, when it comes to a lot of big policies and the way that our country is moving. The DOC has been one of the, is among other mainline denominations who are open and affirming as a denomination, who ordain women and allow for women to be, a woman can be the pope of the organization in the DOC, which, by the way, right now, a woman is our pope. We don't call it a pope, we don't call her a pope, but she's the, what do you call it, the general president? The president general minister, yes. So that's what we call them. In Episcopal Church, it would be called the presiding bishop, right? Like Michael Curry is the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. Terry Owens. Terry Owens is our presiding minister, the president, all right? Presiding, never mind. I told you I haven't been DOC very long. All right, so she is our president and general minister. And she is a woman, and she is also an African-American woman. So our denomination has been aggressive in pushing back against what a lot of times we hear against the kind of the white evangelical problems in this country, right? So that's why I wouldn't want to be a part of a denomination that wasn't working to reconcile and speak truth to power. And so that's why we're a part of the DOC, because our denomination is good at that. Not great, but good. And so it's open and affirming, it's working with women, it's working with also one of the highlights of what the DOC stands for is one of the pillars is becoming an anti-racist church. Becoming an anti-racist church. Not becoming a church that's integrated, although if you become anti-racist, I believe that we will have more integration. But it's not just say, hey, let's go out and see if we can get black people to come to our church. That's not fighting racism. Are you with me? That is not. There's a lot of problems with just white congregations saying we're going to go out and try to get black people to come. All right, we want to recognize the systems of racism and then become anti that. Are you with me? And break down systems. It's not about, well, I have a black friend, so I'm doing okay. No. In fact, don't say that. All right, never say that. If anyone ever comes and say, oh, I feel like you got some white privilege, don't go, well, I have black friends. No. just be quiet and listen. Oh, really? I'm saying amen? Like, we need to recognize our own complicity in these things. Now, the DOC is fighting to become anti-racist. There's not a lot of denominations that are doing that. Are you with me? And so I love this denomination. I love Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I want to be a part of this. And I love that a lot of our DOC friends, that when I speak against, evangelicalism, there's a lot of DOCers that are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. Thank God. But let me just, by a show of hands, if you are so emboldened to be vulnerable with me, how many of our friends here this morning are from the evangelical world? Raise your hand. Okay. Look around. And keep your hand up. Like this whole section. Okay. So, did you see how many people in here are from evangelical backgrounds? So I am from kind of an evangelical, non-denominational background. So when I rail against that stuff, it's because that's where I've come from. And I've seen the abuses of that. And that's one of the reasons why, one of the biggest reasons why I'm a part of, and want to be a part of, and want to be ordained into the Disciples of Christ. Because I want to be on the right side of history from now on. I don't want to be complicit with racism and misogyny and anti-gay behavior. I want to be a part of a church that is saying we will love our neighbor. And who is our neighbor?
Everyone.
Everyone. Every kind of person. Are you with me? Yeah. I don't even feel like we need to read this. I said it almost as good as Jesus. All right, here we go. That is horrible. Don't quote me on that, Jamie. Jamie always does like quotes. That will be the one. It'll be some weird boomerang, me going. And then Israel Hook, I said it as good as Jesus. All right, okay. You're smiling because you know you're going to do it. Just then a lawyer. Just then, it's always the lawyers. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus said to him, what is written in the law? What do you read there? And the lawyer answered, he's like, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said to him, you've given the right answer. That's it, yeah, that's it. Do this and you will live. Here we go. You ready? But, everybody say but. See, there's always a but. In there, there's always a but. There's always it's like, have you heard the saying, it's like, no, everything that you said before the but, I'm going to discard, and now I'm getting ready to hear what you really think. Right? I don't mean to cause trouble, but I don't mean to be rude, but right? I don't want to stir someone's blood. I know Jesus said for me to love, but I know that I answered right that we should love God and we should love our neighbor, but he said to Jesus, trying to justify himself, and who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Jesus replied with a parable. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers. The connotation of this is that this was a Jewish man, all right? He's going from Jerusalem to Jericho. And he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him, they beat him, and then they went away, leaving him half dead. Probably connotation is thinking he was dead. But he wasn't. He was alive. Now, by chance, a priest So this is a man of God. This is a credentialed man of God. This is a priest in the synagogues, in the temple. This is a priest, all right? And a priest was going down that road, and when he saw this half-dead man, he passed by on the other side. And likewise, the Levite, another highly ranked Jewish official most likely, okay? When he came to the place and saw this half-dead man, he passed by on the other side. And then Jesus says, but. It's like, you got a butt? I got a butt. But, a Samaritan, that sounded weird. But, a Samaritan, a what? Samaritan. A what? Samaritan. Samaritan. By the way, does anyone know what Samaritans were? Do you know why? What were they? Mark?
Half-breed Jews.
Half-breed Jews. Half-breed, what does that mean?
They mixed their religion with pagan religions, and
Okay.
they were intermarried with the Canaanites.
Right, so the intermarried Gentiles, pagans, heathens, right? They created, by the way, just really quickly, they created kind of a different race of people. But a Samaritan, after the priest and the Levite passed by, a Samaritan was traveling and came near this half-dead man. And when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and he bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him into the town to an inn, and he took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, take care of him, and when I come back, I'll repay if you've had to spend any more than the 2 that I've given you. Which of these 3 then, Mr. Lawyer, do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? And he couldn't say the word Samaritan. And he just said, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, say it with me, go and do likewise. Jesus tells a story when this guy trying to justify himself. And I like to think he's trying to justify his own religious walls that he's built up. And he's saying, trying to justify himself, well, and who is my neighbor? A lot of teaching in Jewish tradition, not all, but a lot of teaching was that your neighbor was your Jewish neighbor. Your neighbor was that person that looked like you and believed like you and worshiped like you. But that is not actually the Hebrew Bible tradition. The Jewish Bible is replete throughout it that the Jewish people, God's people, were to show hospitality to every human being in their midst. And God would constantly remind His people that you are to take care of the stranger and the alien and treat them as neighbors because you once were aliens and slaves in a foreign land. So the heart of God has always been towards hospitality, towards love, towards acceptance, towards taking care of every kind of bird. That is the heart of God. Are you with me? But there was some tradition just like, we don't struggle with this in the church today in 2019 in America, but just like there are struggles today, there were struggles then, and some religious people had decided that some people were not worthy of being taken care of. And that's why God was always, and Jesus was always saying stuff like, take care of the widow and the orphan. That was code words for take care of the least of these among you. Take care of the marginalized. Take care of the ones that are not given a voice. Are you with me? It's not just take care of widows and orphans. It's take care of anyone you see around you that does not have a voice, that is not being given a place at the table. The heart of God. When you say to God, well, who is my neighbor? In this kind of arrogant way of saying, well, I know who I'm supposed to take care of. No, Jesus comes and he says, I'll tell you who your neighbor is. Everyone. Even that half-breed Jew that you hate, that you've created racism towards, that you've excluded from your synagogues, and that you go around that town so you don't have to even interact with him, that Samaritan is your neighbor. Are you with me? God help us. You know what? Jamie created the graphic for Who Is My Neighbor. We see this nice little neighborhood, don't we? The irony of this, and he did this on purpose, I talked to him about this, the irony of that picture is that it's the exact opposite of what Jesus is saying. The irony is that we all want to be in our gated, closed communities that all look homogeneous and monolithic. We want to live in little houses like this, and we take care of people like that. But if you go down to this side of town, or that place in that area, or that country, we don't want to go there. We don't want to have. We'll go do mission work, but we're not going to be neighbors. And if you don't believe me, Pew Research just put out some research they did back in April through May of this year. I don't know if this is going to be up. The question was asked, race, age, and education differences on U.S. responsibility to accept refugees. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to help us out a little bit. The very top, the one on the left side is we do not have a responsibility to help. We don't have a responsibility. The one on the right is we do have a responsibility to help refugees. The total amount, the total of all that were surveyed, 43% of Americans surveyed said we have no responsibility to help refugees. Now, the word there is refugee. The word is not, do you want to harbor criminal aliens? Okay? Now, what we try to do is, a lot of people in this country are trying to say that anyone who's coming into America is a criminal alien. Right? And that's just, there's a lot of people that are coming as refugees. They're seeking asylum. And there's nothing illegal about that, right? Right. So, 51%, guys, 51%. Just, that's it. Barely majority, 51% say it's our responsibility to help refugees. Now, let's break it down. I'm going to go down to, I'm not going to read all of these because there's white, it's broken into white and black. Oh, by the way, white and black. White, 46% say we have a responsibility, 48%, so more whites say we don't have a responsibility. When you look at black or Hispanic marginalized minorities, black, 67% say we should help. Hispanic, 59% say we should help. It's interesting to me that marginalized communities recognize the plight of marginalized communities. And I'm just going to be honest, white people are not marginalized. We have voices and we can kind of go and do whatever we want, and we don't have a lot of pushback on it. And so it's interesting, when you get fat and happy, you tend to not care about people who are struggling, like widows and orphans. Okay. So it's interesting. Is that not interesting? It's interesting that minorities see, because they have felt the oppressive thumb and the boot on the back of their neck. And so they say, we need to help people. That's how the church started. That's how the ministry of Jesus started. As a little band of marginalized, oppressed, persecuted people saying, we want to stand up for those who are hurting around the world. But now in 2019 in America, where things are a little bit easier, it's kind of like, hey, if you got problems, it's probably your fault, not mine. I don't have any responsibility. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps, boy. Well, that might sound American, but it doesn't sound Jesus. Pew Research goes on to say that, let's go down to like the fourth or fifth one. White evangelical Protestants. White evangelical Protestants, 68% say we have no responsibility. Almost 70% of white evangelical Protestant say we have no responsibility to help people who are struggling and hurting in the form of refugees. 25% say we did. Now, we're a part of, in the DOC, the next one, white mainline Protestants. In that category of white mainline Protestants, 50% of us say it's not our responsibility to help our neighbor. You can, listen, I know there's people here that are going to say that I'm being political.
Good.
Or let me say that there's a lot of people that are going to say I'm being partisan. I'm not partisan. I don't have any faith in our political system that it's going to save anything. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the people of Jesus. And I believe that when we listen to the words of Jesus and become more like Jesus, that this world will change. Amen. It will. That's what I believe. You might think I'm crazy. So it's almost like there was a song written about that. That there's another way to imagine the world. Amen? White, mainline Protestants, 50% say it's not our responsibility. Only 43% says it is. Black Protestants, 63%. Catholic, 50%. Unaffiliated. Listen, look at this. Unaffiliated. People that are not religious at all. With any church, 65% of them believe that it's our responsibility to help people who are hurting. What the heck is going on? Why is it that people in church are the least likely in America to say, let's help people who are refugees? What is happening? Like, how is it that unaffiliateds are almost off the charts? Maybe it's because, like this lawyer, we look at Jesus and we look at the words of Jesus and we say, in order to justify myself, and who is my neighbor? Be careful what question you ask, because you might get the answer you don't want, which is Jesus saying, everyone is your neighbor. We all have a responsibility to care and to love. I thank God that we're a part of that white mainline Protestant and that it's a better number, but we've got a lot of work to do. Amen? Amen? I thank God that I'm a part of a place like Simplicity Christian, because I know in a sermon like this, we get a lot of amens and a lot of head shakes, right? Or a lot of head nods. All right? I know some of you might be uncomfortable and it might stretch you a little bit, but for the most part, we see it and we want to do it. Thank God for a place like this. Amen? Thank God for a place like this, that we're trying. But listen, does that mean that we're there? Have we reached the epitome of what we can do? I mean, our own brothers and sisters in the white mainline Protestant churches, 50% of them, half of them, say, hey, we have no responsibility for these refugees. Who cares? Let them figure it out. And fine, if you're an American and you want to say that, you can say that. But if you're a Jesus person, you can't. I'm just sorry, you can't say that. You don't get to pick who you love and who you take care of. You just don't. It's amazing. I mean, it is amazing to me. I've been a pastor for over 30 years. I'm amazing. Oh, I'm amazing. All right, let's pass the peace. Freudian slip. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how quickly we draw lines in the sand. And you might say to yourself this morning, well, I would do that. I think that we need to take care of people. I want to do that. No, that's great. Good. I hope that you're in the, 51% of the total. I hope you're at least in the 43% of the white mainline Protestant. Hope we're there. I hope really that we could be like these non-Jesus people and be in the 65%. Let's be not like Jesus people. And I don't know, it's crazy that the very opposite thing is happening in America, but it's amazing to me how quickly we decide who's out. You might not do this with the refugee crisis at the border. You might do it with somebody at your work. You might just do it because you don't like the way they look. You might do it to someone just because you don't like the life choices they've made. You might do it, some of us in this room, we struggle with people who wear those red hats around. Say MAGA. And automatically, that's not my neighbor. Come on. It's amazing how quick, well, I don't, she's an addict. I'll tell you what, the way she, I don't know. It's amazing how quickly we draw the line in the sand and we say, not my neighbor. And we ask the question of Jesus to justify ourselves. Well, but who is my neighbor? And then Jesus, what I find with Jesus when I do that with Jesus and I draw a line, I always find myself looking at Jesus on the other side of that line that I just drew. Standing with the one that I just excluded. Are you with me? So, church. Who's our neighbor? Everyone. Especially the one that really chaps you off. Now, listen, let me just give this caveat. Loving someone and treating them with respect does not mean that you have to enter into a toxic relationship and have to be around that person all the time. All right? That is not okay. And that is not what I'm saying. But you can do that. You can remove yourself from intimate relationship with someone and do it in a respectful, honoring way. You don't get on Facebook and start talking smack about them. That's not the Jesus way. We will be neighborly. Are you with me? But especially neighborly with those who are marginalized, who are oppressed, who the thumb is on them. We will stand with those brothers and sisters because that's where Jesus is. And that's our commitment to one another, to getting better, to re-educating ourselves, to knowing the issues, to understanding who is being shut out of and not having a place at the table. How can we give them a place at the table and honor them as our neighbor? Amen? We are not marginalized people that are helping other marginalized people. We are now people that have privilege. Let's use our privilege to work for those and help those who are marginalized and do not have the same privilege we have. Amen? Amen? I need to stop. I really do. I need to stop. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. But I want to say this. Using our privilege to help someone who is underprivileged does not mean we lose our rights. I feel like there's this weird zero-sum game that's played in the political partisan process that says, if I give up, if I help someone over there, that means that there's a little chunk of the pie that's gone, and I can never have that anymore. I don't think that's at all what we're talking. That's not the Jesus way. I think what the Jesus way is this: is that it's like, do you enjoy some privilege? Yes, I do. Okay, then use that privilege to help others that don't have that same privilege, and let's help them maybe rise to the area of privilege that you have. You see what I'm saying? It's not saying, oh, well, you need to be. This is the lie that so many people say in politics, is that if you're going to help those people so that you're just going to give up all of your rights and you're not going to have anything in this world. And everybody's going to just come down to, no, that's not the Jesus way. The Jesus way is those who don't have a voice, the people that do have a voice, we use our privilege to help them have a voice and bring them into a place of equality and privilege.
Right.
That's the Jesus way. That's the kingdom way, right? So but if you don't look at them as a neighbor, then they become an enemy. Then you have to stiff arm them and keep them away. Because if they come in as a neighbor, then that means I share something with them. Are you with me? Does any of this make sense? So I'm thankful that we're a part of the denomination that is better at this. Can we strive to be better than we are now?
Yes.
Then let's do that. Starting today. So please stand with me. Let's share the peace with one another. Hey, meet somebody that you might not know or you just forgot their name and love on them and say this to them. Just look at them and say, peace be with you. Do that right now.